So did the Waymark Lite 50 carry my expectations, or was it just a big pain in my... Hey everyone, Ghostmo here, and welcome back to Everyday Backpacker. Today we're going to take a look at how my Waymark Gear Company Lite 50-liter pack fared in its first season of hiking with me. So for those of you who may not have seen my first review video, I'll go ahead and do a quick overview of some of the specs on this pack. So the pack that I'm reviewing today is the Waymark Gear Company Lite 50-liter pack. In my case, I have an extra large frame, and this pack is in fact a framed pack, so it has two aluminum stays in the back, and it's made out of several different materials, including EcoPack EPX 200, EPX 400, and RBC 450 RS. The total volume that this pack can hold in the extra large frame is about 53 liters, and it weighs around 34.8 ounces. And the max load capacity for this pack is 35 pounds. This pack has a very simple build layout. As you can see, it has very basic back up against the back design. A single roll top opening main compartment with two large elastic side compartments and one large elastic front panel, as well as cargo carrying for an axe, as well as two trekking poles. In the pack that I have, it came with a shoulder pack, as well as a hip pocket on the right side of the hip belt. Now, if you'd like a more thorough overview of how the pack is laid out, you can check out my earlier video, my first impression video of this pack, or you can also look it up on Waymark Gear Company's website. But today, we're going to focus mainly on how the pack performed for me and what I did and didn't like about it over the summer. Now, in my review of the didnt X-Mid 2 tent, I went through a full breakdown of how my tent performed on each of the trips that I went on. I'm not going to do that on this one, but I will give you a summary of what kind of trips we did go out on. The main reason why I'm doing it a little bit differently is because my impression of the pack stayed the same throughout, unlike with the didnt, where it actually kind of progressed as the trips went along. That said, we went on 3 major trips this season. Not as many as I wanted to go on, but enough to get a general good idea of how things worked on. The first trip we went to was a semi-arid area that we had to bring our own water in, and that'll factor into some of my likes and dislikes of the pack later. The second trip we did attempted a 3-night, 4-day trip up into the Lake Plateau area, but we did not have success in that trip. Again, if you want to know a little bit more about that, you can watch those videos as well. And then finally, we went on a 3-day, 4-day trip over Sundance Pass in the Beartooth, and that trip went off epically well. And again, the videos are up and easily available for your viewing pleasure. So in those trips, I definitely had a very quick realization of how I felt about this pack. So of course the question is, am I a Waymark Gear Company fan, or did this pack leave me hanging? Let's find out. So first and foremost, right from the very start, this pack fit me amazingly. The hip belt lands in the perfect spots. There's nice spacing so that it doesn't bunch up in the back and create pressure on your lumbar. And although for a long time I had been a big fan of the springboard back panel for ventilation, I actually found that even though you lose the ventilation, having the load completely up against your back actually makes the pack move with you a little bit better, and it feels more just an extension of you, and it's not quite as awkwardly pulling you back as much. So first and foremost, the thing I absolutely love about this pack is it is easily the best fitting pack I've ever worn. Another thing that I really liked about this pack was how the pack itself is laid out. So again, it's just one main large compartment, and it is kind of rectangular in its internal shape. So the way it's designed is, instead of being a circle or an oval, it actually kind of has more of a squared interior appearance. And this proved to be really advantageous for packing the pack in general, especially with large, kind of hard to fit into certain spot shaped items, such as my sleep kit, which is all inside of one waterproof bag, so that being my top quilt, my pad, and my pillow, and it fit perfectly down into its kind of a rectangular shape itself, and that fit perfectly into the bottom of the pack. And also my didnt X-Mid, which also is kind of more of a circled off rectangular shape, It was also very easy to fit into the pack, and in fact changed the way I do my packing overall, and allowed me to pack the tent higher up so it was easier to get out, so I didn't have to take everything out of the pack to get into it. Another thing that it helped with was providing enough space for me to get my BVM 450 bear canister to fit into it. A lot of people are very concerned about the bulkiness of bear canisters and how they fit into it. A larger one such as the 450 probably would need to go on top, but the smaller ones such as the 450 and the 425 fit perfectly inside of the pack with all the gear. All of those things made it very easy to pack. Now, one of the things I was somewhat concerned about was the roll top design. So I'm, again, very used to having a brain compartment on top, and I really liked having it there to be able to get quick access to certain items that I use more frequently. And it ended up not being an issue at all, and in fact, I actually kind of like the roll top design. It's very easy to close, and I don't feel like I'm fighting with it too much. You do have to kind of burp some air out of it to get it rolled down, but it's generally pretty easy to get done and secure. And then of course the Y strap on top makes it even more securable and allows you to put something on top if need be. As far as having that accessibility of certain items and organization, I overcame that by getting a nice brightly colored dry bag from Sea to Summit and putting my various quick access items into there, and then that just lives directly on top of the bag, so it's easy to just pop it open, grab it real quick, go back into it, and find everything really easily. So it's just a matter of finding a different solution to a new problem. And the last item I'm going to highlight in this review is the serviceability of the external pockets on this pack. So again, it comes with two very large side elastic pockets as well as a stretchy mesh outer panel on the front. And all three of these are really generously sized. On the first trip we went on, we had to camel up because we didn't have access to any water, and I found that I was able to carry not only my smart water bottle, but also the taller silo Nalgene bottles, and they fit in there perfectly well and were very easy to store. And because those two side pockets were completely full of water for that trip, I ended up putting my seat up onto the top and strapping it down with a Y strap, and that worked fairly well. It didn't get into the way too much. It got hung up on a couple things, but on the other trips where water was more plentiful, I found that my chair actually fit in behind my water bottle, so it would be farther away from me, so I could fit my seat into that side compartment and then secure it with a side strap and still be able to access my water bottles really easily. On the other side, I just did the same thing with my umbrella, and it worked out great. And then of course the large front mesh panel had plenty of room for both my Crocs and my poop kit, both of which are things that I genuinely need to get to really quickly. This one for stream crossings. I'll let you use your imagination for this one. So what are some things that I didn't like about the pack, or maybe a better way of describing it is things that weren't really that big a deal but could have, that required different ways to figure those things out. And the first one being that this relatively thin back panel definitely meant that you had to be very cognizant of how you were packing stuff inside the pack, because it's very easy to push through on this. And I found, especially on our first trip, that my bear canister was kind of pushing into my back. Not uncomfortable enough that it was a major issue, but it definitely affected the comfort of the pack. And again, all I had to do on that sense was to change the way that I packed the pack, and I didn't have any problems. Eventually, once I got a good system down, this was more than adequate padding for my back. Another thing that caused me a little bit of a headache that I feel like would be an easy redesign for Waymark packs was the stop at the end of the shoulder strap. So when I take my pack off, I like to completely undo my shoulder straps and my hip belt so that it's easier to put it back on the next time. I don't have to do the circle arm dance like I'm trying to find the shoulder strap. Because of that, these had a really small stop that when you pull all the way out are very difficult to get hold of. And so I was really struggling to try to get my shoulder straps to be able to tighten down again. I feel like they could extend the tail a little bit or maybe even sew it into a loop to make it a little bit easier to grab that and pull it down. Again, it's something that I can certainly live with, but I feel like it would be making my life a little bit easier with something like that. So maybe I'll just jerry-rig something on there. And lastly, I found that the zipper on the hip pockets is a little bit difficult to do and undo with one hand. This is a really minor issue, and again, it's more of a nitpickiness than anything, and I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't even know how you could or couldn't make that easier to pull. It just seems like in the back corner, when you're trying to pull it forward, it just kind of binds up, and you can't really reach around to grab a tab to be able to kind of pull it forward. So again, it's something that I think overall you can live with. I do like that it has double zippers so that you can kind of work around that. And so I do think that's a plus. But yeah, because I'm used to only having the one zipper, I was initially only using that one zipper, and it was creating some binding. But I'll be honest with you, I really don't know that there's much that Waymark could do to fix that. And otherwise, it's still a really great pocket, and it came in handy, and it's just honestly a small minor issue. All right, so I finally tallied up all the points, and I accounted for the altitude of Mount Whitney. Some of you might get that reference. Shout out to Hiker Trash Radio. And overall, I found that the Waymark Lite 50 pack is a great pack. So overall, I'm super happy with this pack. It met all of my needs from day one. It is incredibly comfortable. I really liked my previous Osprey Exos, but I gotta say, I think that the Waymark 50 is a lot more comfortable. If I had a heavier load, it might kind of struggle with that, and it might not be as comfortable. But for me, it hit the sweet spot. And once it was on, just didn't even know it was there. I didn't have to mess with adjustments. I didn't have any sore spots at the end of the day. Everything worked really well with my body. It's a nice, sleek design. It didn't get hung up on anything. And although there were some minor tweak things here and there, overall, I think it's just perfect. I absolutely love the simplicity. For me, the simplicity is 100% a bonus. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and give the Waymark a 4.5 out of 5 stars because, yeah, I'm a believer. I love that pack, and I think it's a good option. It may not work for everybody, but it definitely worked for me. And there you have it. That's a look at my new-to-me Waymark Gear Company Lite 50-liter pack. Don't know why that was so hard to say. I've only said it like a dozen times today. Anyways, there it is. I absolutely love it. Hope you guys have some really good experience with new packs or gear that you might have had for this season. And let's look forward to more fun in the fall. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, keep hiking on.